The first time in Serbia, master coach Danny Creed, who devoted his time, his expertise, his resources to come to be here with us. And I advise you to take every single second of his talk seriously and to implement it in practice, because he has been working with more than 400 restructuring of companies. He built 14 startups. He has been in IT industry specifically for decades, and he knows a lot about street wisdom. So everything you learn about theory, how success should be looking like, Dan is going to disrupt, because he's a man who knows it day-to-day basis and in all markets. Danny, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Everybody eat. Everybody relaxed. You need to relax a little more. Huh? I got those mean old Serbian blues. That was something completely different. There you go. We're going to talk a little about business, and I just love the speakers today because we're all talking about the same thing. And it doesn't matter what language we're in, it doesn't matter where we're at in the world. Some of my mentors, I've been very blessed. Brian Tracy and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, and some of the great speakers and teachers of our time. And you know what? The one thing that is standard with all of them is that there's a foundational recipe. There's a foundational recipe for success. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I'm very bullish on entrepreneurship, or as it was said this morning, whatpreneurship. It just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts to see people who say they're an entrepreneur and then they fail or things go bad and they start blaming people. They start pointing fingers, said, oh, it's the economy, oh, it's our president, oh, it's something. And it just doesn't fly. We're going to talk about that today. And if you want to talk when we're done today, I'll be out in the lobby and I have some materials if you like. But just as way of introduction, so you know who I am, I was born and raised in a farm in the state of Kansas in the United States. The town of 100 people. Can anybody relate to that? A town of 100 people. It gets better. The name of the town was Shoe Fly City. That was the actual name of this town. There were 16 kids in my senior class. 5 of them were girls. 4 of them were my cousins. So I want to tell you, before you ask, I did take my cousin to prom. But I didn't kiss her, so. I left the farm. I'm the only member of my family to leave the farm. My family has been on this farm for 128 years. They are farmers. I was not a farmer. I always knew I wasn't a farmer. So I packed up my things and walked down a dirt road, and I walked into a radio station where I spent 20 years, and I had the great opportunity to, during the real, what we call the golden era of radio, and it was just wonderful because I worked in small towns and large markets. I got the opportunity to work with advertising agencies in New York City and Chicago, and it was just a wonderful time. But at one point in my life, I said, enough radio, I want to be an entrepreneur. This was in 1988. Does anybody remember 1988? It's a young group. I decided to be a bootstrap entrepreneur. Everybody know what a bootstrap entrepreneur is? A bootstrap entrepreneur, just to calm any questions here, an entrepreneur, many times people think an entrepreneur is where you go out and raise millions of dollars and you have a big, nice office and you build. A bootstrap entrepreneur, you have a table in a garage with a cell phone if you're lucky. And you go out and work really hard. You go out and work really hard to find people that will believe in your idea. So I decided to become a bootstrap entrepreneur, and that's why I don't have any hair. Because through all of that, as Melina explained, I've done 14 personal startup businesses. Some were great, some stunk. They were terrible. But we did 3 public offerings out of that. I've worked with over 400 turnaround projects, almost all of them in IT. I am not an IT guy. But almost all of my startups were in IT. My oldest son is a IT genius, and I have to call him to help me with my computer issues most of the time. He goes, "Dad, you started all these businesses in IT, you know, how come you don't know this?" I was the idea guy. I was the sales guy. Large and small clients, I have over 14,000 logged hours of business coaching. So as we talk today, I want you to understand that there's very little theory here. That what I want to share with you today is real life experience. This is what I call street fighting business. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, if you want to start a business and you want to be successful in business, you better understand it's a fight. It's a battle. It's a battle. How many people in here are entrepreneurs? How many people would like to be an entrepreneur? There you go. Yeah, well, this is just what you should expect out of this. You know, and I will tell you that I love this, but this is kind of sums up why I'm an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur because I will be willing to work 70 or 80 hours a week so I don't have to work 40. Does that make sense? I mean, you better understand this. You better understand this. I worked 70, 80, maybe more hours a week in my startups so I didn't have to work for somebody else. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting a good job and working for a good corporation. Nothing. But it wasn't for me. But I believe I'm an entrepreneur. I paid the price. And we're going to talk about that price today as we go through this. You know, some of the issues of being an entrepreneur. Number one, and I always say it with 5 reallys. So the first step is you have to work really, 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 really hard. And if you think any less than that, add a really. You need to work really, 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 really hard. You have to work hard. There are no benefits. There is no money sometimes. You have to make a decision whether you pay yourself or you pay your staff. You have to make a decision whether you pay your mortgage, your rent payment. It's risky. It's out of the comfort zone. Now, if you're okay with this, then it could be exciting. It could be fulfilling. It could be challenging. It could be the most fun thing you've ever done in your life. But you have to make up your mind on this. You have to make up your mind. A hard fact is, and I heard a great addition to this morning, but 90% of all businesses, it's a new statistic, it's grown actually, but 90% of all businesses started today will be broke in 2 years. Will be out of business. For sale. Shut it down. You know why? Because people don't understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You know, there's no foundational disciplines. And we're going to talk about that word discipline a lot. You know, the commitment to the basics that we're going to talk about is this, that you cannot do anything trendy. And in our world that we live in, there's a lot of trendy stuff going on, right? There's a lot of fads, there's a lot of cool apps, there's a lot of things happening. But I'm here to tell you right now, put a nail in it, that you can't do anything fancy, you can't do anything trendy until you have the fundamentals locked down. There was a famous American football coach. Football's different over there than it is here. Named Vince Lombardi. I don't know if you know the name Vince Lombardi, the great Green Bay Packers. Coach Lombardi had a famous saying, and I've met some of his great teams. And he literally, when they would come in after winning like their 4th world championship, he would start the season by saying, "Gentlemen, this is a football. Today we're going to practice blocking and tackling. And tomorrow we're going to practice blocking and tackling." Now this is one of the greatest football teams in history. And he started out every season by practicing blocking and tackling. The fundamentals. Before you can do anything fancy, you have to get the fundamentals down. Those professional skills that are all important to anything that you do. Anybody know who Larry Ellison is? Oracle. Larry Ellison, when I knew Larry, I call him Rich Guy. He was a rich guy. When I had a chance to meet Larry, and by the way, I'm not dropping names, everybody calls Larry Larry. But he was the 2nd richest man on the planet Earth at that time. And he owned Oracle, which was the 2nd largest software company. And I had a chance to talk to Larry, and I asked him, when I'm around somebody like that, I always try to come up with one good question. Not pounce on him, but one good question. So I asked Larry, I said, "Larry, what's your mindset? How do you set what you think about it and how you think to maintain your wealth, to maintain Oracle as a great company, as a growing company, as a fast-growing company?" He considers it a startup, by the way, at $90 billion. But Larry gave me 2 answers. He said, "I've never really thought about that. But you know what? I think about this every day." And this was 12 years ago when he told me this. "I think about this every day." The first thing Larry Ellison said was, lesson 1 is, I go to work every morning and try to instill in my staff the same mindset as we did on our first day at work. Now, what do you think about in your first day at work? I'll share that. What you think about your first day at work, I'm going to protect my money. I'm going to limit my mistakes. If I find something isn't working, we're going to cut it off. We're going to stop doing it. We're going to protect ourselves at all times. And he tries to have his whole staff thinking that way. The second lesson that he taught me, he said, when I go to bed every night, I try to keep in my mind that I could be broke tomorrow. New technology. I asked Bill Gates one time what scared him the most, and I've heard him say this since. I said, "What scares you the most?" He said that a 13-year-old kid is in his dad's garage and came up with something better than Windows. Because that was him. So Larry says, I try to go to bed every night and think, I could be broke tomorrow. What did I do today to protect that? I could be broke tomorrow. What did I do to protect that? So what's that saying? That's not saying, yeah, I'm a rich guy. I'm bulletproof. No one can knock me down. No, he goes to bed every night saying, I could be broke tomorrow. And he's exactly this way. I did some coaching and consulting for Oracle in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon. And I'm telling you, he told me, Dan, this is a startup. I go, yeah, you're a $90 billion company. This is a startup. And it was a startup. I got some money. We got some expenses. And that was about it. It was, go get them, big guy. And my edict, I knew, is if we didn't sell a client within 6 months, they were shutting it down. Fortunately, it worked out pretty well. Our first sale, my first sale that we finished was $47 million. That was pretty nice. You know what the commission check on $47 million is? Ask me later. So we get back to discipline. The definition of discipline that I love the more than anything is discipline is doing what you have to do when you have to do it, whether you want to or not. Doing what you have to do when you have to do it, whether you want to or not. That is discipline. So what does that mean? You can't say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make extra sales calls today. I don't want to call my clients today. I don't want to do the planning I need to do. I'll do it tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. My new book is going to be called, it'll be out in the fall, it'll be called Managing the Grind. And I call the term the grind is something that you learn. It's the definition of this. It's something that you know you have to do, whether you like to do it or not, whether it's comfortable to do it or not. And I will tell you, and we'll talk more about mindset here in a minute, but if you get in your head, if you understand that you have to do it, whether you like it or not, and then you do it, it doesn't become a whining and crying thing. It becomes something I know I have to do it, whether I like it or not. So we've got some of these definitions out of the way. You have to be disciplined. You have to do what's necessary. You have to do what is imperative, and you have to do what's right. And it's understanding what is right. And there's a lot of knowledge behind this, and there's a lot of gut to this. I want to talk about real quickly today, in the time that we have, what I call the 14 entrepreneurial success disciplines. One of my mentors, as I said, was the great Zig Ziglar, and Zig used to say that the similarities of a 40-story skyscraper and a 3-bedroom house were simply that if the foundations were not solid, they'd both fall over. That you have to have the foundations. I have some startup clients that I work with, and I have a $32 billion IT company that's based in Arizona that I work with. And I let them know up front when I come in to work with them that the first thing we're going to do is look at their foundation. We're going to look at their fundamental actions. We're going to find out, and I'm telling you, that's where the big growth is usually. That's why I say if you look at your foundation, you make it very, very strong. And you work on that foundation and then do the fancy stuff and then do the cool apps, then you're going to be much stronger for the long haul. You're not going to be one of those statistics of 90% of the businesses are going to be broken 2 years. So let's talk about these. Number one is something I call the Carnegie Rule. Some of you may be familiar with this. The Andrew Carnegie Foundation did some research a number of years ago, and I've done this particular exercise thousands of times, and I do it with you. We just don't have the time. But here's what we found. We found that success comes down into 3 levels. It's attitude, skills, and knowledge. That's what everything we learn can be broken down to in those 3 levels. Now, I'm not going to ask you as a group what you think the primary one is, but when we go through, and I did this just last week with a large organization, and we had a dry erase board, a flip chart, and we come up with 87 skills, 87 terms that would fall under what it takes to be successful. And every time I've done this, it always works out exactly. Then we go back and we take those 87 skills in that particular case, and we said, okay, let's market an attitude, let's market a skill, or let's market knowledge. And I will tell you, every time we have done this, attitude comes out as 85%. Yes! 85% attitude. We've all are consumers. We've all bought stuff, right? That's a highly scientific term, by the way, stuff. We've all bought stuff. Have you ever went in and a sales rep comes up to you? What do you want? Can I help you? You don't really want to buy anything, do you? Or do you want, the guy goes, hi, how can I help you? Because I'm an expert at this. I'll tell you a little side story. Phoenix, Arizona, where we're from, is a hub for consumer research in the United States. And there's stores called Best Buy there. I don't know whether you have Best Buys here or not, but it's electronics and appliances. And they did a survey watching people that were going to buy appliances and what they did. And everybody went from the Best Buy store in this one particular part of town, and they drove 35 miles to a store called Spencer's TV and Appliance, a local appliance store. And almost 90% of all the people that drove there bought at Spencer's. So I said, I have to check this out. So we went into Best Buy. We walked into the appliance center, and gosh, bless them all. But this young person came over and goes, I just got out of high school this afternoon. What do you want? I said, well, we're looking at a refrigerator freezer. He goes, well, here's some flyers. Okay. So I got our flyers and looked at them. So we left and went over to Spencer's. We walked in, and the guy's name was JT, I believe. We walked into JT, and JT has been selling refrigerators and freezers for 37 years. He is a professional salesman of refrigerators and freezers. We ended up, in our research, we ended up buying a whole kitchen full of appliances. We spent a lot of money on appliances that day. And guess what? About 3 weeks after we bought all these appliances, JT calls us up and says, you know, Mr. Creed, I was on the internet and I found a bonus discount coupon, and we just lowered your bill by $500. Do you think I will ever buy anything, any appliance from anywhere else? Because this guy had a great attitude. He had a helpful attitude. But how many people have you ever dealt with that you can just look at them? And again, I said it earlier, I've seen salespeople, I've trained salespeople all over the United States and all over the world, and there are salespeople who look at you and go, can I help you? And what they're really saying is, you don't want to buy something today, do you? And then there's salespeople that will ask questions. There's professionals. So again, attitude is the key. You've got to be prepared. You've got to believe. Sometimes when no one else will believe, you have to believe. You have to believe in yourself, your idea. It's the difference what I call survival thinking and thriving thinking. In my first book I interviewed a gentleman about, when I was talking about the survival and thriving, and I asked him about goals. And goals is a whole other subject, but I asked him about goals, and he goes, oh, yeah, I've got goals. And I said, are they written? He goes, oh, no, they're not written. I go, okay. But I have goals, and I think about them every day. I go, you do? I said, what's your goal? He goes, oh, I think about it all the time. I get up in the morning, I'm thinking about my goals. I put on my clothes, I think about goals. I go to breakfast, I'm thinking about goals. I'm driving to work, I'm thinking about goals. You know, I go to work, I go in my office, and I'm thinking about goals. And I said, what is the goal? He goes, my goal is to go to work every day and break even. What? His goal is to go to work every day and break even? Is that survival thinking, or is that thriving thinking? Come on. Survival. How many of us, though, go, yeah, I'll try. I hope to do that. Boy, I'd like to do that. Now, I will tell you that thriving thinking, you don't have to currently be thriving to have that mentality, but you've got to believe. You cannot go through life in a survival mode. You've got to decide to be successful. You have to decide to be successful. No matter what the barriers, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better understand that no matter what the barriers, you're going to walk through them. You're going to do your research. And we'll talk about making mistakes and things like that in a minute. But you have to decide to be successful no matter what. If there's no one else holding you up, you have to decide to be successful. You have to make timely, decisive decisions. You have to move through. You have to work hard. You have to dream big. Number 3, 85% of success happens. 85% of success happens with 60 hours a week or more. Now, again, I'm not saying, we talked about, we had a great conversation about work-life balance and those kind of things. I tell you, I do not believe there's such thing as work-life balance. I believe we have to learn to do this. We have to learn to deal with it together. 85% of success happens in 60 hours a week. Now, again, if you want to work those 40 hours and go that route, great. That's okay. But if you're calling yourself an entrepreneur, you better understand that to start with anyway, your goal is to take it easy later. Your goal is that. But to start with, you've got to put in the time. And don't come whining to me at some point or send me an email in a couple of months saying, well, I did that. I worked really hard and it didn't work. I don't care. I really don't care. The successful entrepreneurs today are the people who will continue walking through walls. We're going to talk about that. You've got to work 40 hours a week just to survive. Back to the survival thinking. The world, I have a friend that paraphrased this, and I've mentioned it to a couple of people, but I love this line. He says, the world is full of educated derelicts. That knowledge is not power, the application of knowledge is power. So good for you. Go get your advanced courses, become a PhD, but if you don't apply the knowledge, it's worthless. You've got to apply it. You've got to go out and make it work. You've got to go out and not be afraid to make some mistakes, but you have to apply the knowledge that you have. Again, that's what success is all about. Success is all about learning from your mistakes. Number 4 is self-discipline. My friend Zig Ziglar said, if you're hard on yourself, life will be easy on you. And I believe that to no end. Willingness to do whatever it takes. And I'm sorry for beating this thing to death here, but I want to be sure if you understand one thing, it's that entrepreneurship is not easy. And when I talk about all the turnarounds I've worked with, over 400, the issue behind why these businesses are going broke or struggling is that, again, they're not willing to do whatever it takes. They're not willing to go, okay, I don't really want to do that, but I've got to go do that. I've got to get up at 5 o'clock this morning and go do that. Whatever it takes, and it's understanding that. Again, it's doing what you have to do, when you have to do it, whether you want to or not. That's my mantra. Number 5, and this is something that I'll be speaking on in a breakout session tomorrow. It's near and dear to my heart. I'm kind of maniacal about this, and I will say that time management is passé. In today's world, as fast as things are moving, time management is gone, is a dinosaur. Priority management is where we have to be. We have to understand what our top priorities are and then manage the time around those. You have to start your day performing and completing a major task and if you do that, you'll perform at higher levels throughout the day. It's not starting out with, I'll get the little stuff done, I'll get the crappy stuff done, and then I'll go to my big stuff. No. It's proven fact, scientifically proven. If we start our day off doing a very high-level task that has a lot of importance to it, then the rest of our day will perform better, the rest of our day. The question that you have to ask yourself all the time is, what is the consequence if I don't do it? Consequence is a powerful word. What is the consequence if I don't do that? And I have a whole system that I'll show you tomorrow that's really kind of a secret, it seems to be, in the world. But I'll show you a real simple way to understand consequence and to prioritize things that you're going to do. And that happens tomorrow. There's something called the law of 3 that I believe in life and business. The law of 3 says 90% of our success will come from 3 activities. And that's it. And in general, those 3 activities are, 1, creating value. If you're not creating value, you're wasting your time. For your personal brand, for your company, for your product, you have to create value. And you have to generate revenue. I've seen businesses that are going broke because they forgot to go out and sell something. There's a great, has anybody seen the documentary .com? Look it up. Go watch it. .com is about a group of guys that had a great idea. They raised tens of millions of dollars, and they took that money, and they went out and bought a building. And they bought carpet with their logo on it. And they bought furniture, and they hired staffs, and they brought in teams. And then one day, they were told they were broke. You know why? They forgot to go sell something. They forgot to go sell something. It's a great documentary that makes the point. So create value, generate revenue, and the third thing is completing high consequence tasks. If you follow these 3 things, you'll double and triple your success potential. I really believe that. I've done it. The number 1 success skill, I believe, is the ability to complete a single task. I have a friend that owns a $40 million headhunter organization. He recruits executives, IT executives. And he says the number one skill that they look for today is the ability for somebody to complete a single task. Have you heard the statistics on how it's actually considered an epidemic on a device, interruption epidemic, interruption, what's it called? My mind went blank. But how what our communication devices have done to us. I'm all for all kinds of communication, your cell phones and our computers. I'm all for that. But we have to moderate it. Because if we don't, it's just ridiculous numbers. It's like the average millennial will check their cell phone, will check their device 18 times an hour. And research says it takes 17 minutes to get back on task after you are interrupted. And checking the phone or reacting, how many of us, our phone buzzes and you go, right? It's an addiction. And so we get used to the addiction because when that buzzes, the addiction will shoot a shot of dopamine to our brains. And it's the same as in cocaine. So we kind of like the shot. But go back to it. If you check your phone 18 times an hour and it takes 17 minutes to get back on task, you're never back on task. So you have to manage it. You just have to manage it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying don't do it, but just manage it. And manage what you're doing. I'll get back on. But the ability to complete a single task, it's gotten that bad. I had a guy come in and interview for a job the other day that in the middle of the job interview, he checked his email. He did. I just stopped and I go, let me know when you're done. But we have to be very aware of this. And again, it's foundational. The raw fact is, today we're going to be judged, and we are being judged by the tasks we complete, not start. This is where the world is headed. We've got to be able to focus. We've got to be able to start something, and we've got to be able to finish it. And if you learn to master this alone, you're going to be in a very unique percentile. You're going to be a very valuable asset if you can focus. I want to give you a quick, I'll be doing this workshop tomorrow, and there's a couple of bonus things that I'll be tossing into that, just so you know, so don't miss that. Number 6, single-mindedness. Single-mindedness. It takes 5 times longer to finish a job if you start and stop it. And start and stop and start and stop. It takes 5 times. We have to learn to eliminate unnecessary interruptions. Single-mindedness is a very good skill. How many of us have been sitting in our office or workplace and somebody walks in and goes, hey, what's up? How you doing? Great weather. What are you doing this weekend? Did you see the ball game? How did your team do? I'm telling you, I'll talk about this tomorrow. The number one priority, Warren Buffett. Everybody knows Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett says his number one key strategic word to be a great manager and do what he's done is the word no. We have to learn to say no. If somebody's, I call them time vampires, that people just suck the life out of you, whether they intend to or not. But you've got to say, no, I'm busy on this task. I'm busy on an important task. And as soon as I'm done, I'll be glad to talk with you. But how many of us have the discipline to do that? Number 7, open-mindedness. This is a real issue for me. You've got to be willing to change. Has anybody ever met somebody that's an entrepreneur or wants to be an entrepreneur or in business that's failing? Have you ever talked to them and asked them what's going on? And they tell you and you go, well, why don't you do it this way maybe? And how many of them say, well, I won't do that. I've done it this way forever. In marketing, anybody in marketing? Yeah, I'm telling you, how many times Have you ever talked to somebody and, you talk to them why their business is failing, you say, what kind of marketing you do? I do radio and newspaper. Is that where your customers are? No. But, it's like, anybody heard the old joke of the drunk? It's under a street light. I think I told that last night. The guy was like this, and they go, what are you doing, buddy? And he goes, I lost my car keys. They go, where'd you lose them at? He's over there, but the light's better here. That's the way people are. They're not willing to change. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you better be willing to go, okay, I got to do something else. You've got to be willing to change. And I can't tell you how many businesses I've worked with that have went under because they weren't willing to change how they think. You have to think. I have a line that says, if you continue doing business the way you've always done business, you will be out of business. It's a fact. We have to be flexible. Gosh, in the world, some of the statistics just blew me away this morning when some of our speakers were talking about, on how quickly things are changing worldwide. There's multimillionaires, and what they do is play games. I saw a video in our hotel the other day. They were interviewing a Japanese world's record player on some game, and they said, tell us about your day. And he goes, well, I get up in the morning, and I eat breakfast, and I play games. And then I go exercise, and then I come back and have lunch, and then I go play games. I mean, that's great. Things are changing. That wasn't happening a couple of years ago. The world is changing, and if we're not willing to change with it and think about how it applies to us, I will tell you that probably 85 to 90% of the clients I work with they can't tell me who their target client is. Specifically tell me who their target client is. Why? If you ask them, go, I know who they are. Have you done your research? No. But I know who they are. I work with a dentist. I was telling the story last night. I work with one of the largest dentists in the western United States, and he was struggling, and all of his marketing was towards men. And I said, why men? He said, well, everybody knows it's, man is my dental client. I go, I'll bet you $1,000 it's not. And so we went through all of his client records, and now keep in mind his website was men, all his flyers were men, all of his postcards were men, everything was men, and it turned out his target audience was a 35-year-old woman. He had spent $120,000 on Google AdWords in 1 year targeted to men because he knew that men were his customer, and they're not. We've got to be willing to change. 8, risk-taking. Another reason why I don't have any hair. I've taken a lot of risks. Sometimes you just need to take risks. You know who your biggest competitor is today? The number one competitor of anybody in here. Time. You have other competitors, but your number one competitor is time. If you don't make a decision, pardon the expression, but you're screwed. You are. If you wait too long, somebody's going to be there to replace you. I'm telling you, anybody have any idea that's in business right now, do you have any idea how quickly you can be replaced? It's crazy. I had a heckler in a meeting one time. And for our speakers here, I don't know whether you've ever had hecklers or not, but it's one of those things that you don't really want, or you better be able to deal with them. And there's about 2,000 people in my crowd, and this guy was going, I don't believe any of that. I go, well, okay. I said, let me do a quick example if you don't mind. And I asked the gentleman, I said, what business are you in? He said, heating and air conditioning. I said, okay. So I took my cell phone and held it up. And I hit it, and I said, Google, how many heating and air conditioning companies are there within 20 miles of where I'm standing? I held the mic up to it, and within about 30 seconds, it comes back or less. It says, oh, there were 82 heating and air conditioning companies within 20 miles. So I said, okay, one more thing. I hit one, ring, ring, ring. Hi, this is Bob. Bob's Heating and Air Conditioning. I go, sorry, Bob, wrong number. that's how quickly you can be replaced. It's all about perception. We're in a society through our cell phones and all of our devices that we get immediate results. And we know we can get immediate results. So if you aren't delivering service, if you're not delivering value to what you're doing, if you're not taking a few risks when it's time to take risks, then you're going to be in trouble because you can be replaced. Time. Here's a quick little bonus strategy. I was sharing this with somebody last night. It's a term called QWINK, K-W-I-N-K. QWINK stands for knowing what I now know. It's a way to make better decisions, faster decisions. For those of you who are analytical, this is a great technique to learn to make quicker decisions. And I always work with a lot of technical and IT people with this technique. And if I'm working with you, I'll say, did you QWINK it? So what we found out was that when doing some research, anybody ever hear voices in their heads? You ever hear any voices, little voices in your ear? There's an intuitive voices that, you think of something happens, and the little voice says, don't do it, and it's gone. Or the voice says, do it, and it's gone. And then 3 or 4 days later, something happens, you go, the voice told me not to do it, and I went ahead and did it. Well, the research has been done, and this is what's astounding, that 95 to 97% upon final review of what this little internal voice says is correct upon final review. So I'm telling you, listen to the voices. Listen to the voices in your head, because they are correct if you listen to it, and it helps you make a quicker decision. So when we QWINK things, we use past experiences. Knowing what I now know, it helps me decide what I should continue, discontinue, to reduce doing, to eliminate. It's knowing what I now know. Should I do this again? What does my intuition tell me? What does my experience tell me? Should I stop doing this? Should I hire somebody like this again? Use your experience. Don't keep messing with it every time. Don't relearn every time. We've got to learn to listen to those voices. We have to learn to react to our intuition. We have to learn to react to what we've learned in the past. If your answer is no, stop doing it. Number 9. How's we doing on time here? Number 9, take responsibility. Look, I'm really big with this, and I've got a real issue with people that complain, with people that blame. I don't know so much about business in Europe, but I know in the United States there's been research that says that billions of dollars has been spent. When something goes wrong in a company, that billions of dollars have been spent on, the corporation will go, let's form a committee and find out who screwed up. And they have whole committees and whole groups to find out who messed up. So they can go, it's your fault. You in row 7, it's your fault. When the companies who are agile and really moving and being successful, those are the ones, I'll show you, there's a technique coming up here, but we can't blame. We can't have excuses. Quit making excuses. Quit whining. There's no more problems. There's only opportunities. And I have a 4-step. Write this down. Think about it. I do this with all my clients. It's a powerful tool. I know people who have changed companies with this technique. Okay? And it's a technique to move us away from looking for blame, but to be able to learn. You ready? Step 1. What happened? I know famous General Electric CEO Jack Welch did something very similar to this. 1, I'll look at you and say, what happened? Give me an honest reaction to what happened. Number 2, why did it happen? Let's evaluate the issue. Let's understand it and evaluate why it happened. So what are we doing here? What did we learn? What did we learn? Number 3, how will it never happen again? Number 4, see you later. What happened? Why did it happen? How will it never happen again? Rear view mirror. The only problem in life is when you didn't learn something. That's the only time there's ever a problem, is when you did not learn something. Use this technique, whether you're a billion-dollar company or a startup. You're going to waste more time, money, and effort every time you sit and blame and gripe and whine and moan. So what happened? Why did it happen? How will it never happen again? See you later. Rear view mirror. Move on with learning what happened. Number 10, be willing to change. And again, we talked about that. I love this quote, and I alluded to it earlier. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and then relearn. This is a powerful, and it was stated a long time ago, Alvin Toffler in the book Future Shock. But it's been around, it's a concept that's been around that some people get and some people don't. We have to learn, we have to unlearn, and we have to learn again. And that is a skill. It's not a DNA thing, it's a skill. Everybody here can learn it. We have to change, we have to adapt, we have to adjust, we have to refocus, and we have to keep an open mind. So number 11, total clarity. We don't have time to spend a lot of time on this, but I believe that companies and people who are highly successful or not have a complete high level of clarity in everything about their business, or an extreme lack of clarity about everything in their business. Again, I've talked to people who have no idea, they think they do, about who their typical customer is, who their perfect customer is. I'm telling you, we've lived our lives giving the easy answer and not the right answer. We need to take the time to dig in deep. I've had grown businessmen sit and weep in front of me because they said, I should have known the answer to this. It's too easy to say, men are my customer base. When if they just would have done a little research and got more clarity, they would have known that it's not men, it's women. I have about a 55 questionnaire that I will set down with people and we'll talk about it. And I've taken as long as 3 months to fill out that questionnaire. Because if they don't have the answer, we're going to work on it till we get it. But that clarity will then give you the ability to do marketing well, to do advertising well, to hire right, to target your market. Remember the Larry Ellison comment? We're not going to waste any money. We're going to cut it off if it isn't working. But how do you know that if you don't have clarity? If you don't have clarity in every level of your business. You know, my survey is really powerful. We examine everything. We challenge everything. We question everything. And that's another keynote of entrepreneurs today. I'm telling you, you have to question yourself and make a decision. You have to challenge everything and make a decision. You have to examine everything and then make a decision. But total clarity is the key to everything. One of my mentors, I said, and I've known him since 1980, I guess, Brian Tracy. Everybody heard of Brian Tracy? He's quite a guy. Anyway, I've worked with Brian, and he was my coach for a while, and I would sit with Brian, and he'd ask me a question, and I'd think about it and contemplate it, and I would come back with an answer that I knew I could win a Nobel Prize with. And I come in and sit down and I said, Brian, here's my answer. He goes, very good, that's very good. What else? I go, what? He goes, what else? What else is the magical question? Learn, train yourself to say what else. What did I miss? What did I forget? What did I not see? What else is the magic question? I'm telling you, it's powerful. Number 12, written goals. Again, we're back to goals. 70% of our world has no goals. 70%. 27% of our society says they have goals. 27% says they have goals, but they're not written. 2%, 2 to 3%. Brian says 1 to 2%. But 2 to 3% has goals, has written goals, very clear written goals. Now here's the statistic that just came out in the newspapers. I was going to bring it with me and I forgot, but you can look it up. They say then with that 2% that has written goals, that they had controlled 98% of all wealth. So I'm asking you, is that incentive enough to set some goals? I can help you with that, by the way, but but that should be incentive enough. There are 3 men in America right now that controls literally 90. They have more income than amongst the 3 of them than like 170 million people. Set goals. And I'll tell you a real quick story. Do I have time for another quick story? I have a friend, he's a pretty famous speaker, and he went to Bill Gates' house. And Bill Gates and they were talking about goals and these kind of things. And Gates asked my friend, he says, so do you have goals? He goes, oh yeah, we've sat down and we've worked out goals. And the goals that we have, we've got them set for the next year, and we're very proud of what we've established. And Bill Gates is a very nice man. But he looked at my friend and very politely said, that's nice. He said, come with me. And they walked into a room, down a hallway. And they walked up to large doors, and they opened these doors up. And they walked in, and there was a map on the wall. And Bill Gates said, that's my family's 100-year goal plan. They're thinking way beyond the current situation that they have. They're thinking way beyond where our money and our wealth is going to go in the next year or two, or inheritances or whatever. They've got a plan for that money for 100 years. And where's he at, and where am I at? I have written goals. I don't have a 100-year plan, but I have written goals, and I urge you all to do that. And if you don't know how to do it, we'll talk, okay? Number 13, please learn to sell. Do what you have to do. And I don't want to hear, I'm not a salesman, I'm an IT expert, I'm not a sales guy. Has anybody ever asked a girl out? Guys, has anybody ever asked a girl out for a date? If you have, you sold. Same with you ladies, you've sold. If you ever asked for a raise, you've sold. If you have children, well, you're selling all the time. If you've ever went to a teacher, you've sold. Don't tell me you aren't a salesperson, because you are. You have to learn this to excel in business today. To excel as an IT expert, you have to know how to sell. To be an entrepreneur, you have to know how to sell. And you can learn it. Again, it's a skill. It's not something, oh, he's a natural-born salesman. Some people can talk better than others, but it's a skill you can learn. I created a program called Professional Selling for Non-Selling Professionals. And it's a powerful, we did the test run. We had 58 executives from all over the world. That these were gentlemen, men and women, who were very successful in corporate. They decided to get out of corporate and become an entrepreneur. And they failed. They were failing. Guess why they were failing? They wouldn't sell. And they couldn't sell. And now they're finding themselves, I've even had a bank, I work with a couple of bank presidents, some of the biggest banks in Arizona, and these guys say, well, my board of directors in New York called up and said, well, yeah, you're a top-notch banker, but you have to go out and sell our top-end clients. They go, I don't know how to sell. Well, you better learn. See you later. We'll replace you if you don't. You have to learn how to sell. And it's not that, the results, by the way, of that test that we did of those 58 men and women, we generated, in 12 weeks, we generated almost 1,500 leads, and we had a closing ratio of almost 50%. It's a skill you can learn if you want to learn, and if you're disciplined enough to learn. There's no exceptions. It's a necessity. It's a requirement if you're in business today. Number 14, and I'll wrap up with this, is you have to be happy. You've got to do what you love to do or get out. Does that sound harsh? I don't care. Do what you love to do or quit complaining. Leave. Give the rest of us a break. Right? Give the rest of us a break. Be happy with what you're doing. Enjoy it. I'm telling you, with all the pressure as an entrepreneur of working all the hours, of giving up everything, of no money early on, of dealing with stupid people, and on, you better love it. I'm telling you, I love every second of my life. I love every second of it. Is it easy? No. Is it hard? Yes. But I knew that going in. I knew that going in. So whatever you're doing in life, and let me shift to that, whatever you're doing in life, whatever you choose to do in life, you've got to be happy with what you're doing, or get out, change jobs, do something different, but get out. A couple of final thoughts. I've given you a lot of actionable items. That's why I try to keep it fairly simple. You know, in everything I do, we try to be very, very basic on understanding what you need to do. Very actionable items. You can do it. If you want to change your future, you have to take action. And you have to take action now. Not, oh, I'll do it later this week. You've got to take action now. You've got to do it now. You've got to hone your skills. Look, I believe you can change the world. I believe you can do it. And and my oath is this: I can change the world. Who believes that? Let me hear it. I can change the world. You can be a little louder than that. I will change the world. I am changing the world. And hopefully I have this right. You will change the world. I'll help you do that. I believe in you. I have evaluation forms I'm going to have for you later, but I believe it's the greatest time in history to be in business. I believe it's the greatest time in history to be in business. And I hope you choose, if you choose to be in business, I hope you choose to change the world, at least your world. Thank you.